Hi, Megha.
Hi, sir. Good evening, everyone.
Mr. Fadnavis a rough time yesterday, so I'm not looking forward to it.
And I'm not going to be that nasty to you, I promise. Now, good evening, everyone. Since I'm chairing a session where Dr. Tharoor is my guest, I'm going to take some risks today with some very fancy words that I've never used in my life before. So please bear with me. Please bear with me. Joining us is a man whose sesquipedian eloquence often leaves his political rivals in a state of bewilder, floxy knots and hilly-filification. I got that right, Dr. Saab. As he navigates the friction between decrying kakistocracy and offering constructive praise for the treasury benches, we are here to find out if Dr. Tharoor is the Congress's last intellectual bastion or its most articulate bridge to the BJP. But before we do that, Dr. Tharoor, it's always a delight and extremely enriching to hear your views on what's happening around the world and where India stands in all of that. And so, sir, first, welcome to Ideas of India. And it's been fabulous listening to all the sessions that you have chaired. I am only going to try to be as good as I can. I want to begin by asking you, sir, see, whatever's been happening around the world, whatever's unfolded in the last 24 hours, it's like the entire Middle East has plunged in a conflict. After the attack that US and Israel mounted on Iran, we have reports of explosion from 4 different countries. Dubai, the cities are Dubai, Doha, I think Abu Dhabi,
and
Riyadh.
Bahrain.
Yeah, so I mean, there are multiple countries that have all of a sudden gotten involved, sir. My question to you, what do you think from your understanding, whatever is happening in Middle East right now, does it have the potential to sort of turn into a much bigger problem, maybe take the shape of a world war?
Well, world war is a bit dramatic. I mean, nowadays the fashion seems to be regional wars all over the place. But there's no question that from what we're hearing, that the Iranians have lashed out at every country in the region which is hosting a US base. And all these countries, all these places are being targeted for that reason. They in turn have objected vehemently, saying that they reserve the right to retaliate against Iran as well. So it could get very nasty. The Americans and Israelis have been building up to this for quite some time, and we've seen this happening. The signs were available in the public space. For example, yesterday a number of people were tweeting the advisory issued by the American ambassador in Israel, asking Americans in his embassy staff to leave. And they said this is a very clear signal. There cannot be any other interpretation but that war is imminent. And sure enough, it started the next day. So in many ways, this has been so widely telegraphed. There are 2 things one can assume. One is that the Israelis and the Americans had done all their preparations and targeting, and they know what they're trying to do. But the other is that the Iranians are no fools, and they also had enough time to prepare both to protect themselves and to retaliate. I mean, the 2 principal towns attacked in Iran appear to be Tehran, where the president lives, and Qom, where the Ayatollah lives. And there are also 3 or 4 other towns which are hosting ballistic missile bases and so on in Iran. Now, how much they have been able to achieve with that, it's too early to tell. But we will soon find out, I think, in the course of the rest of this evening and night, we will know what kind of damage has been done and how much Iran's capacity to retaliate has been crippled or not. As I say, given how long and how publicly telegraphed the build-up was, the Iranians must have taken appropriate steps on their side. So I don't think it's going to be that easy, but we'll see.
No, but the retaliation has happened in multiple countries, and that's concerning, isn't it?
The multiple countries targeted are all hosting American bases. So Iran will argue they're not targeting those countries, they're targeting the bases. Now, the countries are not going to be happy about that because already, for example, in Abu Dhabi, one person described as an Asian national has died. That could be an Indian, Pakistani, whatever an Asian national is. And that could be something which has nothing to do with an American military base. We have a very incomplete picture. I was watching television till a few minutes ago, till I came down, the international channels, and I don't think people have a great idea of what's going on. Yeah. And I don't think that in any case, the outcome of what has happened, people know missiles are flying here and there. We have a pretty clear idea that the Americans have targeted the two leaders in Iran, as well as the ballistic missile sites, and that Iran in turn wants to use ballistic missiles to hit back at these targets. There have been reports on international channels that some missiles were intercepted in midair. There was apparently some dramatic footage of a missile being intercepted above Doha, Qatar. Another story of one being intercepted above Jordan, which is on its way to Israel, I'm assuming, and yet another about Israel. So all we're getting are these sporadic, dramatic stories. You know the breaking news culture better than I do, Megha. But though the news is broken, what else is broken remains to be found out.
Absolutely, Dr. Tharoor. But you would say that it's too early for us to try and understand if these countries will eventually get involved in this, because cities are being targeted, cities are within these countries.
Look, cities are being targeted, and cities where Indians live in large numbers. As soon as the news broke out, I contacted the Foreign Secretary at the MEA and asked why no advisories had gone out immediately. He said they were being prepared. So I've issued a tweet saying that all Indian nationals will be receiving advisories in these various Gulf countries. My common sense advice tells me that they should stay away from American military bases and hunker down. I mean, what more can they do?
Yeah.
At this stage, there are other frustrations. We have, for example, all the flights across the Gulf coming to India have been cancelled. Emirates has cancelled their flights. Qatar Airlines cancelled their flights. Turkish Airlines has cancelled their flights. There's a lot of cancellations taking place. And people are already being affected in that sense. There will therefore be interruptions in travel, in commerce, in normal relations. And because Indians are represented in such large numbers in the Gulf, we have 4 to 7 million people depending on where, I think you're looking at something that cannot leave India unaffected and Indians unaffected. So we have to watch it very carefully.
Watch it carefully. So the theme of this conclave is the New World Order. And you've argued recently that the international law has been reduced to just a polite fiction.
Yeah.
That's how you've described it.
Yeah.
And you've said that this new rule, then if you have to follow this rule, then nothing stops Russia from treating Ukraine as a historical correction.
That's right.
Or India or China using perhaps might is right policy in their neighborhood.
But that's the example that has been set for us by the others. Russia marches into Ukraine because they have the strength to do so. America decapitates the Venezuelan regime because they can. Now, America and Israel are attacking Iran without a proximate casus belli. I mean, the whole logic in the old days was you have a right to self-defense. But if you want to look at the classic principles of the UN, and what was upheld, including in our Panchsheel and other international doctrines, what were they? Sanctity of states, the sovereignty of states, the respect for the UN Charter, the inviolability of borders, the inadmissibility of the use of force to settle international disputes, the unacceptability of initiating conflict. All of these things, one after the other, have just been tossed aside, thrown to the winds. Increasingly, since the Iraq war of 2003, there have been violation after violation. Today, as Mark Carney, the Canadian Prime Minister, pointed out in Davos, I mean, the fact is that to some degree, international law always required a certain level of hypocrisy. Now that hypocrisy has been cast to the winds. If the people who are the guardians of international law are the ones violating it, then what is left? As I wrote in one of my articles, the only rule now appears to be that there are no rules. In which case, you don't calculate anymore, am I violating international law? Am I violating a border? Am I violating sovereignty? You just ask, can I afford the cost of hitting them? Can they hit me back? How badly can they hit me back? And as long as they can, this is the law of the bully in the schoolyard. This is the law of the jungle as well. And that's what we're living with today.
Dr. Tharoor, then in that case, the turmoil that you're describing, and actually the turmoil that we are living in today's day, what should be the main objective of India's foreign policy, and how do you suggest we should go about achieving that target of ours?
Well, look, I think what we are trying to do, and I think it's the right thing to do, is to dance very carefully on a tightrope, not take sides with anybody or against anybody in any of these conflicts, but at the same time, keep our lines of communication open everywhere, and do whatever we can to protect our people and our national interests. This is the core approach that we have to follow.
Okay.
So if you look at something like the Ukraine war, we never condemned Russia. I was against that. I spoke in Parliament against it. But you can see that the merits of that approach, where we have our Prime Minister going to Moscow one day and hugging Mr. Putin, and 2 weeks later going to Kiev and hugging Mr. Zelensky. I mean, there are not too many people who can do that and get away with it. We've done it. Similarly with Israel and the Arab world, the Arab foreign ministers were all in Delhi 2 weeks before Mr. Modi went to Israel. So, we are trying to keep communications open with all sides. We have close relations with some of the Arab countries, particularly in the Gulf. And we have obvious challenges in our neighborhood. I mean, last year, what we saw at the time of Operation Sindoor was a concerted effort by Pakistan and China together, which we can't overlook. But it was only 4 days. We've come out of it. But we draw lessons from all of this. Bottom line, we are a country that is focused on our growth, our development, our trade, our well-being and prosperity of our people, our new technology. We have no interest in being dragged into warfare, either in our neighborhood or in larger circles, larger forums elsewhere in the world. I think, as far as I can tell, and I'm not in the government, don't forget, my view is that the Indian government will try and stay out of trouble as to the extent possible, but try and keep doors and windows open to all parties in all of these issues.
Just curious, since you mentioned Russia, US, at the time of the SCO, whatever happened around that time, sir, when we were slapped at 50% tariff, and all of a sudden we decided we wanted to go and shake hands, which Putin was there.
That wasn't a sudden decision. It actually had been planned all along. The SCO invitations are issued months in advance.
But we were not sure if the Prime Minister is going to make it. The clarity happened after the 50%.
I'm sure that the decision that the PM would go, and the manner in which he conducted himself, and the photo ops that were engineered, all of those were to send a signal, and that signal was clearly received where it was intended to be, because we've seen what happened thereafter in terms of Washington's willingness to rethink the 50%. Exactly.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, sir, so, the growing unilateralism that we are now seeing in the world and the erosion of multilateralism, in fact, you, one of the institutions, United Nations, where you worked for 29 long years, do you think that it's now actually getting very irrelevant? It has no control over anything that's happening across the world. And do you think that the smaller organizations, maybe BRICS, G20, it's time that those are going to replace what UN once used to do?
I know that's a tempting analysis. It's a little more complicated than that, Megha. First of all, the UN is not only the Security Council in peace and security. If you look at the Security Council and its role in upholding international peace and security, I agree with you that the UN has become essentially irrelevant to a very great extent. If you look at the fact that they were pretty much irrelevant when it came to the recent conflicts in Syria, in Libya, in Ukraine, and now in Gaza, and now, of course, in Iran too. I mean, what can they do? The US has a veto and they're sitting on the Security Council, just as the Russians had a veto when Ukraine came up. The Council will be helpless when a permanent member decides to do what it wants to do. So to that degree, on peace and security, the UN is, I'm afraid, currently irrelevant. And it will remain irrelevant as long as the permanent members are divided, or as long as one or more permanent member decides to do what it wants to do. The others are not able to stop it because it has a veto. Having said that, the UN is more than that. The UN has a convening power on global issues that has served the world well since 1945. Everything from decolonization to disarmament to issues of development. The conference is convened on everything from the environment to human rights to urbanization to, you name it, wildlife, all sorts of issues. The UN is the one forum that can bring all the countries of the world together. So when people talk about, let's scrap the UN, it's no use, I'm reminded of a wonderful old story that used to be told by a late Soviet ambassador to the UN in the early 60s, a man called Yakub Malik. And he would always say, whenever I hear this about the UN being useless and so on, he says, I'm reminded of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. When Adam finds one day that Eve is becoming indifferent to him, and Adam says to Eve, Eve, is there someone else? You ask that question, just as there was no one in the Garden of Eden apart from Adam, there is nothing in the world apart from the UN. There is no other platform that brings every single country together on one forum where they can actually talk to each other, meet, convene, discuss. And that is an indispensable role. So I would preserve the UN at the very least just to have a forum where everyone can come together. Okay. Churchill's old line about war is worse than jaw. Let them talk. They move their jaws, but let them not fight. Now they are fighting, but they can talk about everything else. And I think, as my late boss Kofi Annan used to say, the world is full of problems without passports. There is problems that cross all frontiers uninvited and that no one country or group of countries can solve on their own. And therefore, you need a forum where you can tackle these global problems. Environment. Nobody can fence their own climate off in the sky. It's a common issue. We have to deal with it commonly. That sort of thing. So the bottom line that I would say is preserve the UN. It's been through dark times before. It'll come out of them. And right now, we're going through a particularly bad time. And of course, Mr. Trump's Board of Peace for Gaza, he's often made statements suggesting it'll kind of supplant the UN. The UN Security Council as a peacemaking forum around the world, not just in Gaza. And I don't think that every country in the world is signing up for that.
But sir, you would still agree that it's safe to conclude that as far as the conflicts across the world are concerned, UN has terribly failed in containing that.
I mean, the truth is, currently it has. Look, there have been success stories and there have been failures. But by and large, there's a very simple formula to assess them. Where the members of the Security Council can agree, and where the permanent members don't directly have a vested interest, the UN has been hugely effective in stopping all sorts of wars, including the earlier Middle East wars and so on. And it's been very effective in Africa, in Latin America, in Southeast Asia, Cambodia, East Timor, and Namibia. I can name a number of examples of conflicts in my own time at the UN where the UN was effective. It's won a couple of Nobel Peace Prizes for its effectiveness. So don't write off the mechanism because currently it is indeed ineffective.
Okay. All right. So what do you think about India joining Pax Silica, sir?
I think that's a very good thing. You see, when Pax Silica was first announced and India wasn't in it, I thought that was bad news.
Okay.
Because the whole idea was they were trying to create a mechanism, an international coalition targeting the world of technology in the dawning AI era. And for us not to be part of that would really have been a setback. Now that we're in it, I see us very much as part of the construction of an alternative supply chain in technology that is going to be indispensable for us to be part of.
Okay. So, we talk about America, we talk about Europe. America has always had its sense of exceptionalism. And Europe is currently rediscovering its unity despite the bitter wars that it is facing at this moment. But in all of this, where do you see India standing with its newfound aspiration of wanting to be a Vishwaguru, which is what the Prime Minister very often talks about?
Yeah, I'm not big on the Vishwaguru label. I'd
You're
rather
not,
think
or are
of
you?
being a Vishwabandhu, being a friend to all, which has traditionally been our approach and which is consistent with what the government is really doing. They're trying to be friendly, as I said, with both Israel and the Arabs, both with Russia and Ukraine, both with America and China, and in their own ways.
How many world leaders can really pull this off? You know, be in Ukraine one day, in Russia the other day.
There you are.
Okay, so what's your assessment of the Prime Minister then in that context, if I were to ask?
No, so in that context, I would say what he did was a very, very wise thing. Had he not gone to Ukraine after going to Russia, he would have positioned himself and India in one corner of the conflict. By going to Ukraine as well, he managed to balance it, and he has not, in the process, antagonized the Russians, because it was well after his visit to Ukraine that President Putin came calling in Delhi. So this is India's strength, that we can manage to keep that Vishwabandhu role with everybody, and that's something that I would support.
Okay, so let me ask you this, that if you were still serving as India's external affairs minister, how would you have dealt with President Donald Trump's absolutely inexplicable flip-flop with tariffs?
With great deal of shock and consternation, I think is the answer, because I don't think any of us saw it coming. It really came out of, the American expression came out of left field. No one was expecting it. And I think that in my case in particular, I had just been in Washington 3 weeks previously, where we had had meetings with everybody short of Mr. Trump. I met the Vice President, Mr. Vance. I met pretty much every member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and a few other senators besides. I saw a number of congressmen. I saw all the principal think tanks. I can't tell you right across the board, we were given so much sympathy, understanding, and support for our stand on Sindoor, on terrorism, on Pakistan. To come back and suddenly have Mr. Trump 3 weeks later saying things that simply didn't match what we had heard. In fact, I can say to you openly now that in our meeting with the State Department, I was so stunned when the Deputy Secretary of State said everything that I had gone there to get him to listen to. And the ambassador and I were joking in the lift on the way down, was he reading from my talking points? So it really was that positive. I cannot tell you how positive it was. None of us had any reason to expect that we would be blindsided.
What do you think happened?
Well, I think, first of all, America is a very different system from most other countries. The president has outsized power and authority to act on his own whims, his own choices, his own prejudices, his own ideas. I mean, there is a certain idiosyncrasy there that I think, I'm trying to put it as politely as possible, that I think has unsettled lots of other countries as well before us and will undoubtedly unsettle others after us.
Let me ask you then, I want to know Dr. Tharoor's assessment of the President Donald Trump, Dr. Tharoor's assessment of the man Donald Trump.
Unpredictable, unfiltered, what more can I say? He's like an unfiltered coffee. The truth is, look, this is a gentleman who obviously has enormous amounts of power. And any government has to deal with that reality. I think you have to accept that you can't, in any case, have your own way with somebody who is a law unto himself. Yeah. And you just have to adjust as best you can. I thought India handled itself pretty wisely in, what did we do? We did not overreact publicly. There were no overt condemnations of what the Americans had done. Instead,
we were restrained.
There was a certain amount of resilience in our response, but equally, we started dramatically multiplying our alternatives. Yeah. The free trade agreement with the UK followed. The free trade agreement with the EU was expedited. Another one was signed with Oman. Another one was signed with New Zealand. Now we're talking about even the US coming back to another free trade agreement. So this is a way of showing, look, we will make up. If the Americans are going to deprive us of a good chunk of our market, $45 billion worth of exports, well, we will try and find those $45 billion in some other market somewhere else. And that, I think, is the right, mature response. And it may have contributed to the Americans coming back and saying, let's talk. And the talking seems to have resulted, at least in principle, in a framework agreement. There are many things we can criticize in that. And I myself in Parliament have pointed out that there's too much of a commitment by India up front to purchase American items without a corresponding guarantee from the American side. But these are things we can quibble about in detail. At least they've come back to the table after this rather shocking sort of 50% slap across the face.
That brings me into the topic of Russian oil. And do you think that India today finds itself in a catch-22 situation, sir, when it comes to our energy security? And also, let me add here, had you been in the government today, what would you have done, sir? Because we keep asking Dr. Jaishankar, and you know the kind of response. Then there's no response at all. No. I mean, you just keep going in circles and circles. You don't get a clear answer.
No, Jai is very good at answering and knowing how to answer without answering.
Not on this topic.
But all I can say is that ultimately the purchase decisions are actually made by companies. And the American sanctions were de facto not being applied on companies that were importing Russian oil until Mr. Trump suddenly decided it was going to apply. Now, at that point, if you are an Indian company that's refining oil in India and you want to sell the products of your refinery to countries around the world, in Western Europe, in America, and so on, and they say that if you buy oil from Russia, we will not only not buy your refined products, we will sanction you. What is your interest in continuing? Because you as a company have to remain viable in the international marketplace. Therefore, I think that any Indian company facing that reality will be very reluctant to get itself into that.
That's
kind
exactly
of
what happened, because those companies in Russia got sanctioned, and so the Indian companies backed out.
They've dialed down dramatically. It takes time because a lot of these oil contracts are established 2-3 months in advance. Okay. So it's not that they can switch off the spigot overnight. But I would say that in the course of these last few months, you've seen a perceptible decline in Indian companies importing Russian oil. And I suspect that decline will continue until such time. As long as the sanctions exist, I don't see us buying a lot. The same thing happened with Iran, and I might add happened with Venezuela earlier. Look at our imports from Venezuela up to 2017. We were buying a lot of Venezuelan oil. Suddenly the Americans sanctioned Venezuelan oil. Boom, it came down very fast and ended up at zero. Same with Iranian oil. And one day, if Russian oil is going off the market, Venezuelan oil has come back. So now we're going to buy from Venezuela and we're going to shut down Russian. I mean, this is unfortunately a measure of the power that America has by its capacity to sanction others. Everyone wants to do some business with America, and if America is going to sanction you, your business becomes unviable.
So pretty much helpless we are, aren't we?
But this is, frankly, the might is right world that we are living in.
Well, okay, Dr. Tharoor, now let me get a little closer home. Since India's independence, the nation has grappled with intractable border disputes with two nuclear-armed neighbors, China and Pakistan. And frankly, we've really not been able to solve those problems. There have been multiple wars that we faced. So I want to understand, maybe just pick your brain a little. Tell me, I mean, these problems have gone on for decades. Do you really see a practical solution in the offing anywhere?
Sadly, no. And I'm frankly disappointed by the fact that there is no movement. I mean, it's been 78 years since independence, and we still have two unsettled borders. That, to my mind, is deeply troubling. I've spoken to some Chinese. In fact, at one time, some years ago, the Chinese were pretending that they were willing to settle. It was us who were unwilling to settle. Today, there's not even that pretense anymore. I was chatting, for example, to Professor Yan, who was here, and he clearly indicates that Beijing has no interest in settling. They'd like to have, frankly,
an unsettled issue with its
border
neighbor
they can use to keep us off balance from time to time. And his comment was, when I said, listen, when this border problem is solved, everything else becomes possible. He said, we have no border problems with America. We still have problems with America. So, I mean, the fact is, merely settling the border problem with India will not make everything good with India, so why should we solve the problem? I'm being very unfair to paraphrase it so dramatically, but we're running out of time, so I thought I will tell you that. That's basically the thrust.
We are not running out of time, and I'm not going to follow that clock here.
Okay.
So yeah, we
I
have
still
more
have
time,
a flight
sir.
to catch, though. But anyway, let me just say that if you look at this objectively, the Chinese do not seem to want to settle the border in a hurry. They have been taking the line for some time that let's leave it for future generations to settle, by which I think they shrewdly calculated one generation ago that they were going to get richer and stronger and more powerful until the day would come and they could dictate a settlement and India would be in no position to argue. That was their calculation, and so far that's the way they're going. We, on the other hand, have every interest in settling because we needlessly are tying down an enormous amount of resources in preserving our territory in an area, in many areas where they're nibbling away at it. Now, with Pakistan, the situation, you may have listened to the conversation today between our two intelligence chiefs, retired intelligence chiefs, ours and the Pakistanis. And when I'm trying to push them, can we imagine a settlement that doesn't involve any change in territory? It's difficult to get a straight answer from the Pakistanis because they cannot relinquish their long-standing claim that Kashmir should belong to them from the days of partition. We're never going to give it to them. It's very clear. So is there a solution possible? I mean, I would like to think we can, and we apparently came very close in the Musharraf-Manmohan Singh back-channel negotiations. Didn't happen. Will we be able to revive it? Who knows? Because every time we try and talk peace with Pakistan, some terrorist attack happens, and the authorities in Pakistan seem unable or unwilling to prevent it. And so we go back to square one again.
Okay. I'll ensure that you don't miss your flight, but give me a little more time with you. And I'm getting now to an area of my liking, Dr. Tharoor. Now, in the past few months, you've been often accused of being BJP's favorite congressman. Okay.
Only
that's how it is.
On one issue, I think there was some.
No. From Operation Sindoor, starting from Operation Sindoor, going on to the AI summit, sir. Going to the AI summit. I mean, Rahul Gandhi is there calling those guys who are being arrested for that shirtless protest. He's calling them mere babbar sher. And you are there praising the AI summit. So clearly, I mean, you keep contradicting your party's stand. I want to understand, are you providing a constructive opposition? Are you building a bridge for future crossing over to the BJP?
Listen, I mean, I think I have such a long paper trail, I'm surprised you would ask this question. I published my first book in 1981. I've had a consistent view.
You're getting closer to the BJP.
No. Look, my views have literally not changed. You can pick up any of my old books and see what I've talked about. I've consistently believed in a robust defense. I've consistently believed in a robust and strong independent foreign policy. I have consistently written and articulated a vision of India as a diverse civilization, which people of every religious background, every community, every language, every state have an equal stake and equal rights. I have never deviated from any of these principles. As far as economics were concerned, I was openly a Swatantra Party supporter. That is, I was in favor of laissez-faire economics along with social justice. Openly on civilizational issues, I have stood behind my Hindu faith, but as one that embraces an acceptance of all other faiths in our society. All of this has been consistent. I've written books to prove it. And the point is, if no one reads in our culture, what can I do?
No. Every time Prime Minister goes out of the way to praise you, of course, everybody gets talking.
No, listen, I mean, I am grateful when people are willing to see any merit in me, whoever they are, whether it's on that side or this side. And I'm not comfortable or happy if my party should feel somehow undermined by anything I've said or done. But do remember, in Parliament, I have never deviated from a party line. When I'm asked my personal opinion in a forum like this, I give it. But I stress it's a personal opinion. And I have no objection when the party hastens to say that's his personal opinion, because I've never pretended it's anything else. It is a personal opinion. I'm not a spokesman for the party.
You had a long discussion, a meeting with Rahul Gandhi pretty recently. What was the conversation all about?
Look, there's no point having a closed-door conversation if I'm going to talk about it on media, but it was a good conversation that in many respects cleared the air on any misunderstandings that might exist on both sides. And were
you able to clear them?
We concluded we were on the same page and we are moving ahead. I've got elections coming up in my home state.
You have elections, of course.
And I'm very busy campaigning there. I was just inaugurating a major halt in the yatra of my leader of the opposition in Kerala.
So I have to ask you, in the context of your upcoming election, Dr. Tharoor, you very recently stated that there is no question of me being the CM candidate. Hence, my question to you, Dr. Tharoor, is that, and you actually went on to say that my responsibility is towards Thiruvananthapuram. However, sir, just last year, you personally amplified a public survey on your social media handle that showed you as the most popular choice for the Chief Minister's post in Kerala. Dr. Tharoor, if you're truly just a humble MP, why would you do that?
Because somebody sent it to me, and what did I do? I just quote-tweeted it with a namaskar. I didn't say a word. Did I say anything? Did I say this is my great ambition and passion? No. I just did a namaskar. You can interpret that as a namaskar.
Okay, so how should we interpret it? I'm asking you.
As an acknowledgement of something at a particular moment, a snapshot in time.
Why are you keeping yourself out of the race?
First of all, because I'm not an MLA, I'm an MP.
That's all right. That can be fixed.
No, not necessarily. And secondly, frankly, I mean, I think it's time to understand that in a party like the Congress, some decisions are not really in the capacity of any individual politician. They're made by the high command. The party has a high command culture. And it'll be foolish of anyone to project their own individual interests because they have no real say in the end as to what the high command decides.
Okay. All right, Dr. Tharoor, I will now wrap it up, another 2 minutes. But Kerala now officially becomes Keralam. This added Dr. Tharoor, do you think that fixes anything for the state?
No, it doesn't. Honestly, you know, the state has been asking for bread, it got a suffix instead. I mean, it's really, we've been deploring. In fact, I already wrote a few pieces about invisible Kerala. I complained in my budget speech in Parliament about how completely my state has been neglected by the union government and the budget. We have been waiting. They promised an AIMS 12 years ago. We still haven't got it.
Though when I asked the finance minister, she said something that she's done for the coconut growers. And she said, oh, that really touches the masses in Kerala. She said that to me.
Well, but she didn't mention Kerala in her speech. We've got to see the fine print and see where these coconut... The only thing where Kerala was mentioned was on a turtle trail. So the turtles of Kerala may have reason to be happy, but as far as the human beings are concerned, whether it's coconut growers, cashew growers, spice growers, rubber growers, there's lots of anxiety right across all these sectors in Kerala. The coastal people are facing the crisis of coastal erosion. No central funds have been forthcoming. Our public health has been waiting for an aims. Nothing has come. None of those things have been granted. But when the state government asks for a wasteful and pointless and empty symbolism of a change of name, central government is happy to grant it because it costs them nothing. They can have an easy win. And here we have the state government going around parading it as a great victory. What is the point? What is the victory? The only people who are going to benefit from this are sign painters, letterhead printers, people who are going to add an M everywhere. I mean, the whole thing, I started first making fun of it. But then I wrote a fairly angry public piece saying, I mean, this is empty political symbolism without any genuine substance, and that completely begs the issue of the real needs of the state of Kerala, which have been ostentatiously ignored by the central government.
Okay, that's
and now don't ask me about where I'm going to cross over to that same central government.
So that question's not going to go. I'm promising you that it's not going to go, perhaps till until you actually cross over. But Dr. Tharoor, let me wrap it up with a rapid fire now. So these are the questions that come your way. If you had to debate one leader in Hindi in Parliament, who would you want that face to be?
Anybody from the DMK, because I'm sure my Hindi will be better than theirs.
Imagine you had to conduct a one-day English-speaking class for politicians inside the parliament. Which three politicians would you want seated in the front row?
Oh, I would want people whom I can also learn from. So someone like a Mohua Moitra to learn how to be feisty in English. Someone like Piyush Goyal to teach us how, when you're asked a question in English, he knows how to reply in Hindi. And any number of BJP ministers who can speak in English at great length without actually saying anything.
And I thought you're going to pick people who do not know how to speak English so that you tutor them. And if you want to pick such three faces, would it be?
No, I have
Can I suggest you?
I have no pretensions of being a tutor. I'm still a student. I still want to learn.
Okay. So you've already written a book, Why Am I a Hindu? But given the kind of politics that you're currently doing, sir, is your next book going to be titled, Why Am I in Congress?
It'll be a very short book, my dear Megha, because honestly, the Congress is the party that comes closest to my lifelong convictions. There may be slight differences of opinion on some issues, but the core idea of India that the Congress upholds has been the idea that not only have I upheld, but I've written about and talked about for more than 4 or 5 decades. How can I find any other party that echoes that vision of my country?
If the Prime Minister were to offer you, Dr. Tharoor, please cross over to our side, what would you say?
I'd say to him very politely, listen, I'll be very happy to support you when you do good work, as I have done.
But you would decline the offer,
But I
would
would
you?
decline joining the BJP because honestly and I'm sure that they would not want me to join them. It's a media fantasy, this thing. They know what I've said and criticized them for.
It's clearly not a media fantasy, sir. It isn't. There's no smoke without fire, sir, please. So, okay, let's move.
Have you seen cigarettes?
If you were to become the Congress president, what would be the very first change or the new rule you'd introduce at the AICC headquarters the moment you take charge?
Well, look, I did run for Congress president, so I've already said what it would be. It would be decentralization. I would say that the only decision for the states that we need to make is to choose the local PCC president, thereafter make him or her accountable, and let them choose their people, let them choose their district Congress leaders. It's absurd to me that DCC presidents are being vetted in Delhi. How would we know who's doing effective work in the grassroots? We must empower the grassroots. That's been my message throughout.
Why haven't you been able to drill all of this into Rahul Gandhi's head?
I think I have made my case. Who wants to listen and to what degree they want to agree is up to them.
So they don't listen to you at all?
Listen, don't put words in my mouth, Megha. I mean, come on.
Okay, going ahead, memorizing the most difficult word in the dictionary or understanding the decisions of the Congress High Command, which is harder?
No, neither is very hard. I mean, let's face it. Memorizing difficult words in dictionary, I don't actually need to look up the dictionary.
You don't need to actually.
I come across the words elsewhere. But when it comes to understanding the decisions is not the problem because the logic of the decisions is clear. I think the worry many people have in the party is the opportunity to participate in the formulation of those decisions, is whether various views are always taken into account. But certainly the decisions always follow an understandable logic, so understanding is not a problem.
Okay. Finally, what's the real secret behind your female following? Is it both on social media and in real life? I'm asking, is it your Tharoorian English or is it your intellectual swag or something else that we don't know?
Look, ask the women. If there is a female following, ask them about it. Look, I mean, the only thing I can say is that somehow, I think the one thing I do differently, perhaps, from many men I've observed in our society is I actually listen to women with respect. I mean, I don't actually treat them as objects, as unfortunately some people sometimes seem to do. I listen to them. I'm interested in what they have to say. I genuinely take pleasure in their company, and I perhaps communicate that instinctively when I'm around them. Beyond that, whatever else it is, only they can tell you.
Yeah, I think you are the wrong person for me to ask this question.
There
But if that is all that makes them get smitten to you, sir, I'm doubting that. Okay, now my final 30 seconds with you. One word for these 5 people that I'm now going to name. Donald Trump.
Unpredictable, unfiltered, I already answered that.
Dr. Jaishankar.
Hyper-realist. He is a realist foreign minister.
Rahul Gandhi.
Resilient. He's taken a lot of knocks and he's still standing and moving with
Narendra
courage.
Modi.
I think performative, theatrical, but effective.
Finally, Kerala for you.
Home.
Home. Dr. Tharoor, thank you so much. Such a delight.
Mathrubhumi.
Such a delight to have you here. Thank you so much.